You all are in for a real treat today because my good friend Connie Walter with Diversified Insurance has come in to record an episode with us about something very important that I don't know necessarily gets brought up enough for people, and that is event insurance. Now, before we go off and on all these different questions that we've already been asking her before we started, Connie, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for asking me.
And Mike and Sharon, Connie's a lot of fun. Now, I know you haven't been out to dinner or anything with her, but they're a lot of fun. So, Connie, before we get started, will you tell everybody a little bit about your background? Because I know you've been in insurance for over 30 years.
Yes.
You don't even look like you could. No way.
You're too sweet. No, I started out in insurance in 1981, right out of college. I was at Farm Bureau Insurance in Jeffersonville. Worked there for 16 years. I left after I had my second child, stayed at home for about 10 years, went right back into insurance, back to Farm Bureau as an agent at that time, and been back ever since. But I did leave Farm Bureau. I really wanted to get into the independent agency world, which is what Diversified is. We've got so many more options as far as carriers, probably including our brokers. We probably have over 20 different carriers that we can quote insurance with. So there's no restrictions. You have something you want us to write, you want us to quote, we'll look at it for you no matter what it is. So I do really enjoy being on the independent agency side of it.
So you're located, the office is in downtown Jeffersonville, but you do service both Indiana and Kentucky.
That is correct, Kristina. We are licensed for Indiana and Kentucky in all lines of business, including life and annuities.
And just for those listening, they do all different types of insurance. And one of the other things I would like to point out is they can call you on the phone. They can come in the office. You all are very personable, and you all are very well known in the community for being involved and things like that. So I really appreciate you taking time to come in and talk to us. And I'm so glad you explained the difference between independent versus at a certain place, because that just means for your clients, there's other options.
That's correct. If we see that a policy has had a premium increase, say 10% that year, our CSRs are going to automatically requote them to see if we can get something less for them. And of course, claims could matter. There could be other things on the driving records maybe, but we always try and we always contact the insurer and discuss with them what we're doing and why.
Great. Well, Connie, I'm sure glad you're here because I know you do all types of insurance, and you're certainly an expert in your field, but I want to talk about event insurance today because I have so many clients that ask me about event insurance. They don't know if they need it. They don't know what it covers. And honestly, I still have a lot to learn where that's concerned. So I am happy you're here because I want to be able to give good information and solid information to my clients. So can you just kind of, I guess, start by telling us what event insurance is, and does every wedding need an event insurance policy?
I think every wedding, every party, any type of event that you're having, whether it be at your home or if you're renting a venue, you need event insurance. You want to always protect what's dearest to you, your loved ones, your assets. And by having some type of liability in place, along with liquor liability, if there's going to be alcohol consumed at these events, you need to have this policy. Now, a wedding policy, of course, is going to come with a lot more different options of coverage. But just in general speaking, an event, a graduation party, anything that you're having, you need to have this.
Okay, I have a quick question.
Yes.
I've heard people say something about, well, I'm adding a rider or I'm adding a separate policy to my homeowner's insurance. Can we start there? Is that recommended?
I don't recommend it. Now, we used to always, before event insurance policies got to be a much greater thing than what they were, we would tell people, let's increase your liability on your homeowners. But with that being said, if there's a claim that's going to go against your homeowners, and that could affect you for a number of years with the premium increases, and then depending on how long the claim would go on, So I definitely would recommend not putting that on your policy, your homeowners.
But doesn't that go back to what you said about protecting your assets and your family? Because then you're adding it to your home, which is your asset.
Exactly.
Okay. Sharon, I know you've got a lot of questions.
What makes you say every event needs? What kind of things happen that you see, gosh, I wish they would have had a policy?
Well, I can relate to one in particular claim that I remember well, way back when there was not, that I know of, event insurance, where a couple had a hayride at their home for friends and family. And as the tractor was pulling the wagon came loose, went back the road. Several people fell off, were injured. There was a bodily injury claim that lasted for at least 5 years, I'd say. And that was all against the owners of the property. And to me, if they would have had some type of an event policy on that, there would have been at least $1 million in coverage, because that's what I recommend starting out with, is $1 million, and some go up to as high as $5 million.
Speaking specifically in regard to weddings, what would this policy cover?
It could cover many things. It could cover if for some reason there's a cancellation, whether it's due to like COVID, which we experienced last year. If you made a deposit on a venue and you lost that deposit because you had to cancel for some reason. Or it could also cover loss or damage to your wedding rings. If you put a deposit on a dress or even purchased a dress, you went back the next week, the store was closed, it would cover that, your attire.
And that's happening. Businesses are
yes,
actually, it even happened before COVID in our area.
So what about destination weddings?
That as well. If you've got a wedding planned out of the country and say a week before there's a hurricane that's supposed to hit, you have to cancel. Due to weather, yes, you would also have that. That would be a cancellation reason. And you can choose the limit of coverage that you want to. And I believe most of these start out anywhere from around $7,500 and go up to as high as $175,000. And that is on these optional coverages, not the general liability or the liquor liability.
Okay, I have a question. Can you, for those who don't know, general liability, what is that?
General liability is pretty much if someone was to get injured, either while leaving there or while they were there. Okay, and in most venues, yes, the venue's going to have their own policy, but it's best also that the person that's hosting it have their policy as well. And a lot of venues now are requiring that you have your own policy.
I've seen that so much more in the last 18 months than I ever had before.
And Sharon, does this goes to a lot of venues require wedding professionals, whether you're a DJ, a band, anybody that's providing a service, that you submit proof that you have certain amount of insurance or that you have insurance and things like that.
It's actually part of my contract as their wedding planner that I will only work with licensed and insured wedding professionals in certain categories.
But all of this,
DJ, catering.
All this that we're talking about though doesn't protect the bride and groom or the couple.
No, not at all.
No, it just protects that person providing the service. And I've been to a lot of receptions where if there's drinks, obviously something's going to get spilled. Whether it's water, beer, Coke, it's going to get spilled on the floor. Someone's on the dance floor, they slip and fall. If they are really hurt, they go to the hospital. Yeah, that's right there. That could come under the liability that we're speaking of. So there's just a lot of different things that I've seen happen, and I'm sure you have too, Sharon, as a wedding planner at receptions. That could definitely be a proposed liability risk, and you want to make sure that you're protected.
We're pretty blunt on our podcast. We're pretty call it like it is. And the thing that I see that concerns me the most is no matter how good a bar service you have, there can be someone that gets drunk and they do something really stupid. We've had, there was a case in Louisville a few years back where a drunk person tried to slide down a stair banister and fell. and broke their mandible and knocked a bunch of their teeth out. I've certainly had events where guests, become intoxicated and, they fall or they trip or they do something crazy. And, it's always a worry. And a lot of times I feel like the couples think, well, my bartender is insured, so I'm good. But it's been my experience that anyone can get sued.
Absolutely.
And I know you and I talked before we started that anyone whose name was on that event possibly could have liability.
Yes.
If someone is injured. So I think that's something really good to point out. Just because your vendors are insured does not protect you as the client, the couple.
Gosh,
So-
something popping in my mind. I'm sorry, Mike. Is Sharon? This goes back to a previous episode about who you're inviting to your event
Well,
and knowing your crowd, knowing your guests. I mean, honestly, that's just what popped in my mind.
sometimes
when you
people
said
we
it.
think we know change a lot with
You
alcohol.
really don't know. Well, let me ask a question. So, I know it covers the event itself, but we were talking earlier about different vendors, such as suits. You mentioned suits, and we didn't. How would that cover if something happened to the suits?
The suits. Okay. If something's damaged when it gets there, and you have to either take it back, they want to try to charge you for that damage. Okay, then this insurance would cover that.
So,
Or
what
if
about?
Can I ask?
Sure.
Like if you lost your vest or you lost your tie or
Every
your jacket.
reception.
Yes, and there's so many
Because you're
different
on the
I
parts
had
to
no
that.
clue that would even be.
You're on the
included
hook for that. Okay.
Yes.
I'm glad you asked that because I really didn't know what she meant by that.
That's actually a really good point because at every reception, as we're leaving, I go around and I find somebody's suit jacket, at least one.
Well, and the thing about it, when we do our suits, there is an insurance thing that they take out on it, which is $10, but that covers it if it's ripped or torn or anything like that. But if it's lost, it does not cover that.
Right, and what is the average cost to replace one of those suit jackets?
About $600.
So
Wow.
there.
Really?
Exactly.
So you may not even realize that one of Mike's and his wife's businesses is Jim's Formal Wear. So that's I didn't even.
Yeah. So
Great information.
It is.
Okay, so you got another question?
I do. So when it comes to just flowers, for example, yes, I have insurance for decorating and setting up and that kind of thing. But say something happened to my cooler and the night before, and I go in, God forbid this ever happened.
You better
But-
knock on some wood.
But I'm saying, what if something happened to my cooler and it froze everything? Does that fall back on that, or does that just fall back on my insurance?
Now that would fall back on yours.
Because
as
it's
far
in
as
his
I know.
place of business, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That would come under yours.
Okay, so let's go back to the event, and like you said, we're having the ceremony, we're having the reception, and a storm comes during the reception itself. All the flowers get blown away. The event didn't take place. Would that fall under the policy where they would recover the whole event and also decorations?
Honestly, I think that it would, but that is something that I would have to check on for you. With that being a severe
I've had that
weather,
happen before, so that's why. I'm wondering.
Exactly. That actually happened at my son's wedding. There was some wind storm beforehand, and everything got blown off the tables. Of course, we had event insurance for that, but we just had to go back and pick everything up and try to make it look the best we could and go on.
You're saying that the event didn't take place,
The event had just started, and everybody had to evacuate.
so that did
And
it go on?
it came through for about 20 minutes. And then we are running around like crazy. Just so happens I was there and my team. We put everything back together, but there was a big pool in their backyard. Tablecloths, napkins, everything was in that pool.
Now, if it damaged those rentals and things like that, I would think
And
event
yes,
insurance.
because there is something on there about damage to rented property. So that is something else that that's just important to mention.
Oh, Sharon, that
So-
brings up a whole nother topic because most weddings do rentals.
Almost everywhere. That's what
Yes.
So we've talked about weather. We've talked about
The
Right.
dreaded C word.
crazy alcohol.
Oh,
Yes,
I
but
thought you were going to say
what's really the elephant in the room right now for wedding couples, in my opinion, is they're worried about losing everything, because a lot of couples did, should another COVID surge happen, or anything similar to COVID, that has caused so many weddings to postpone and cancel. That's what I get asked the most. You know, when I recommend, and it's on my checklist for couples to get event insurance, I recommend it to every couple. But what I hear them saying is, will it cover if we have to cancel or postpone? And, you know, I had one couple that just stands out so strong in my mind. They were paying for their wedding themselves. They had saved up, and COVID canceled their wedding. They were not able to get back all of their deposits and everything. So that couple actually ended up just getting married at the courthouse because they didn't recoup any of their deposits and they didn't have money to start over. So my main question is, does event insurance cover a cancellation? And if so, does it cover a cancellation if it's forced, or will it cover even if, you know, I have another couple, he's in the military and they're supposed to get married in a few months and he just got orders to deploy. So they can't get married when they were going to because he's not going to be in the United States. You know, would it cover that?
As a matter of fact, Sharon, now that you mentioned that, I do remember reading something on this policy that's called call to duty. And that is if the bride or the groom is unexpectedly called out of the country for any reason or anywhere, that their military service leave revoked, forcing them to postpone their wedding, they would provide reimbursement.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. But as far as the cancellation as well, I know a really good friend of mine, her daughter had a wedding scheduled for last year. And of course it got canceled, and I'm not going to mention the name of the venue, but they had put down a $5,000 deposit and the venue refused to refund the deposit, but said, well, you can pick a date next year, but this is all we have available. Well, there was
That's
nothing.
what happened almost 100% of the time.
Yes, and there was nothing that she could pick on a Saturday. Well, they went ahead and did a private ceremony for a few close friends and family at their home. And they still have this deposit over there at this venue, and the venue says, well, you can use it for something else. And they're like, we can't have a party that large. You know, what would we use this for? And this was her last daughter to get married. So she's like, I either use it, have something over there, or I lose the $5,000.
I would have a first anniversary and, you know,
exactly.
blow it out.
I mean, and I understand what you're saying, but you have to think about the businesses too.
Exactly.
Because if every business refunded all the money that we lost last year, none of us would be in business today.
But that's the point of having event insurance, because if they would have had event insurance, she could have recovered
Exactly. And you know,
some of that or that money.
Yes. Well, it depends on the limit of the policy that they choose. And like I mentioned to y'all before, I'm not the best at commercial insurance because I don't quote hardly any. But I do know that on some commercial policies for businesses, there is something on there called like loss of use. And that would probably come into play if some of these venues would not be able to provide the service to the person and they either had to refund, you know, a deposit or whatever the case may be. But that would be something you want to take up with your agent.
But back to our couples, you're saying during the pandemic, had those couples had event insurance, they could have recouped their deposit.
Yes.
Depending on the policy they picked.
Yes.
And I think
she's saying all of them would have given. It just depends on the limit.
It depends on that's correct. It just depends on the limit that they choose. And you know, some of these, I'm just going to kind of give you, for instance, here, you could go up to as high on deposits. Okay, you can go up. You can go up to as high as 15,000, I believe it was.
Well, that's what I was just going to say is I like what she said at the beginning about it being customized. So if you know that your budget is a larger budget event, you
would
may
get a
want
higher
to
policy.
you may want higher coverages for
Well,
that event.
And I think depending on your guest count and how high of a budget, like you just said, budget wedding you're having, but to me, just having, my background's also in healthcare, I think I would even push that $1 million limit. I think I would go higher than that because one good injury that requires a helicopter and ICU and those kind of things, you're going to hit that million and you're going to hit it really, really fast.
Exactly. And I want to correct myself here. Actually, on lost deposits, the total limit or the highest you can go is 10,000. But on the cancellation and postponement, the highest limit is 175,000.
See, that would
That's
have
great
amazing.
information.
That's amazing.
that would have saved a lot of weddings.
Yes.
Well, and I do think that I like that you don't, here's your event policy. This is what you get. This is how much it is. It's based on your particular needs. Like Connie mentioned, if you're having an event that is not serving alcohol, there may be other things that you want to consider in your policy.
Every wedding is different and custom, and so their insurance should be custom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I like about independent agencies.
There is not a couple, honestly, in today's society, the pandemics that we're going through and continue to go through, your doors should not be, they should be knocked down.
Exactly.
They should be piling in there. Because something that it's more important to get insurance than it is to get a decoration somewhere. You see what I'm saying? I mean that's more important.
It should be at the top of your priorities.
Should be in the top of the exactly.
Well, and I also 100% agree with what Connie said a little bit ago about venues requiring it more and more and more. And I think it's because of COVID and the fine line that we walk between venues having to keep deposits in order to stay in business and couples losing their money. I think trying to protect their clients, venues now are requiring these policies because it protects both.
Exactly.
And I think we're going to see that even more. I think almost every venue is going to start to require
Well, there's not a week that goes by that we don't hear. We've got booked over 300 weddings this year. But every week, and Sharon can confess to this, it's always one. Still today, either they're going to cancel or they're going to postpone. And having this in place first before you even get any of your vendors would be the smartest thing to do.
Absolutely.
Well, the other thing too is I've worked with Connie for many years, and this has come up on all different types of insurance policies. It's just that little bit of blanket of security, or however you want to word it, that, I think people may have things going through their mind about they're hesitant about going ahead and booking, putting all these deposits down on events and what ifs and this and that. What if things shake out, open back up, and everything's great to go? What if things make a little bit of a turn and there's other mandates that come in place? This is your wedding. This is an important chapter in your life. Of course, do you have to consider what's best for you? But so many people can get caught up in the what ifs, and to know that there's something out there that still, it's going to cost you some money. And Connie, that's where I want to go to next. But it's affordable enough where you don't have to put your life on hold or your wedding on hold. We talked about this before. It weighs heavy on couples' minds. And I just think of that as kind of a little bit of a security blanket to kind of help guide you in that process. And I don't know if that's the right word. Sharon's a lot better at words than I am. But I just like the fact that there's an option out there where you still feel like you're protected.
It's kind of like, and Mike has heard me say this before, actually in reference to him, but it's like when you're the trapeze artist in the circus. You want to be able to fly and you want to, be free to fly and not worry, but you need that safety net under you where you know
Absolutely.
if you fall, there's something there to catch you. And to me, that's what event insurance is. And I always have clients that are like, "Oh, Sharon, really, do we need it? Like, how much is that going to cost? We're spending so much money." But
there's your answer right there, though. You're spending so much money.
So you're spending $50,000 on this wedding. Do you want to gamble that? Are you ready to gamble that? about how much is it, Connie, to get a
That's
month?
what, can you do us, do you have like, can
Oh,
you
just
do
an
us-
average. I know they're all different, but just a
No,
ballpark.
absolutely. I did just a little preliminary quote.
And I want to make sure that people hear you. So will you
Oh,
hold that
I'm sorry.
microphone over, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
No, I
I
did
think
a
this
quote.
is important.
And this was just I just want to get an idea. Like on the cancellation postponement, I put a limit of 15,000 on there. Additional expense was 3,000. Photography or video. Like something goes wrong with your photographs, but you don't know it till after it's done.
Oh my goodness.
There's coverage for that. Although I do
That's very
think
smart. That's
yes, well, especially like I know
Why? There's no do-overs. Didn't we say that in our very first episode we
And-
recorded?
not just I don't know videography is such a really big thing now, but also there has been a lot of drones I've seen
Right.
that are over at weddings and just different things like that.
Technology is great when it works, but I
Absolutely.
love that that's included in that.
Just go
because
through what it includes. I would really like
Sure.
to hear.
Yes. Well, and when it says event gifts, this means, I guess you get a fine set of crystal. Somehow it's knocked off the table while it's at the reception. It's completely broken. This covers events, gifts. This quote that I did covers it up to $1,500. Then we have special jewelry, which is what they're talking about, of course, is your wedding bands, that type of thing. One gets lost. Something happens to it when the little ring bearer is holding it, whatever the case may be. This one would cover that up to $1,500. And then lost deposits on this policy, I did $1,500. But as well as you know, that limit would definitely need to be higher, only because of you've got to put deposits down on everything now.
Probably based on your budget.
Exactly.
Okay.
I also did a $1 million general liability on this policy, as well as a $1 million liquor liability. So this total, depending on a guest count of around 350 to 400 people, would run about $535.
Such a small investment for
That's-
the peace of mind.
yes.
Exactly.
So Sharon, you mentioned something about a $50,000 wedding. I know that those numbers probably would need to be checked there. Even if that policy was $1,000 and you're getting a safety net that's costing you $1,000 and you're investing $50,000 in this day.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Well,
I think we're kind of speechless.
Yeah.
Us.
The peace of mind that would come with that, to me, is worth everything.
Absolutely.
I
well,
mean,
you
that
know,
is a
I'm
lot.
gonna sell you. You watch out.
Yeah.
Because
you.
I'm not kidding. Every time I sit down with the bride, especially in the last month, she's always, hopefully this is going to take place. Hopefully this is going to happen. You know, and they still have that negativity in their brain
Oh,
that
you can't
something's
blame
going to happen, and I
Exactly.
don't blame them.
No.
But I mean, having this as a peace of mind would be amazing.
Well, and when I sit down with my clients, when I do all-inclusive wedding planning, I review every contract before they sign it. And we're always sitting together and I'm reading through the contract and they go, what does it say about if I have to cancel? If I sign this, do I get my deposit back? They are so traumatized by what has happened, and so am I,
Yes.
that they're really worried about being under contract with a vendor and then something happening that their wedding can't take place.
All of which I think is 100% expected and is okay that they feel.
Oh, absolutely.
Everyone feels that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's justified.
Well, and you know, venues and vendors have changed their contract because of
Yes.
2020.
This is just a way to help protect the
Everyone.
entire event. I
Exactly.
feel like. Okay, I have a question. I know we were talking about venues and stuff like that, but what about, because Sharon mentioned earlier, people have went to having private events at a family or friend's farm or someone that has a lot of acreage, you know, and they do an outside event with tents and things like that. Can this be used, event insurance, no matter where the event's taking place? I'm just asking, like, if it was on private property.
Absolutely. I wrote a event policy when my daughter and son both graduated from high school, and we had a very large party there for both of them. And I did not feel comfortable just upping my liability on my home. So I wrote $1 million. And it wasn't anything as far as like the wedding part, wedding policy. It didn't cover, any kind of photography or gifts or anything such as that. But it was the general liability and the liquor liability if someone got hurt on my property, and if someone left there and got hurt in an accident due to drinking or for any reason that they might decide.
Well, I'm thinking even because most of our listeners are planning weddings, but I'm thinking even like we have so many bachelorette parties,
engagement parties,
we have bridal showers, those kind of things that almost always happen on private property.
Yes. And that type of policy, we write that through one of our brokers. And it basically is just your general liability, liquor liability. Now, there is something in there called set up and take down. If you're setting up, I guess maybe and there is a storm like we were talking about, there would be an amount of coverage for that. Everything you add to that, though, would also increase it. I will just give you, for instance, I just wrote an event policy for someone that's having a class reunion at their home. And they are estimating, I believe it was around 150 persons there or under. We added the general liability to $3 million as well as the liquor liability. And that policy ran about $435.
Oh my gosh.
Goodness.
Yeah.
That's well, and so I also want to say, no matter if you're having something that's not wedding related, you're having a party, anniversary party, there are different things. I'm sitting here running through my mind thinking, gosh, I've done a couple of different ones that there's probably been smart. I should have had some.
What's coming to my mind is I have so many of my girls' brides that they do these bachelorette parties are not like when we all got married. They are these epic events.
Oh, yeah.
Sharon, what are you trying to say? That we're old?
Yeah. But anyway,
we'll let that one slide since we have a guest.
One of the big things now is to rent an Airbnb.
Yes.
Nashville's a really popular destination. Yes. Gatlinburg's a really popular. The beach. But they rent these Airbnbs, and then lots of people are. There's a lot of alcohol. There's a lot of partying. And I've never even thought to mention insurance to them, but now I will because it's
exactly. The only thing would be with them renting something like that. If they're renting an Airbnb, that home itself is going to have liability insurance.
Okay.
This, I don't believe, but that's something else I can check on. This policy, as far as I know, would not cover that.
Okay.
And especially another thing, as far as we're only licensed in Indiana and Kentucky, which means I couldn't write a policy if the event was going to take place out of those two
states. Maybe somebody there could.
Or you could refer them to a person that does cover, have one of the same companies.
Exactly. Well, that's what's good about having the broker that we do. They cover all 50 states. And so they would definitely have someone that could write something like that. And
so what she's saying is no matter where you're listening, you could still reach out to Connie and she could still direct you in the right direction. I just never even thought
about insurance for a bridal shower or a bachelorette or those kind of things.
Well, and I know that
let me ask you this. Too. So if you're traveling to another state and you're staying in an Airbnb, like you said, that insurance falls under that policy. But what if they're traveling from Kentucky to there and they get in a car accident and they're hurt? Is that's totally different?
It is. That would have to be under an auto policy. Okay. Anything that happens in a motor vehicle, an automobile, a bus, that policy would have to come with that vehicle itself. Same way with like limos, which I run into those party buses. They have insurance. Now, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I rented one for my daughter's 21st birthday. They did have us sign something because there were several. Everyone was over 21 that was in the bus, but they still had us sign something before we got in there regarding that we would not hold them responsible if there was something that made it.
I rent transportation almost every wedding, not every wedding, but almost every wedding I do, and that is still a thing.
Okay.
You still have to sign. Yeah. And a lot of the times, what I do is we don't put any alcohol on the bus before the ceremony. I'll have my assistant switch out a cooler we'll switch ice water for alcohol, but not until after the ceremony. So we limit the amount of time they have to drink.
That is good.
Okay. Gosh, I feel like we've covered a lot. It does not feel like we have talked as long as we have.
Well, there's a lot to it. It's kind of big and deep and wide. And
It's very important.
oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
this is one of the most important things we've talked about on here, really.
I'm so glad to hear you all say that.
Affects every
Yeah.
event. So anything else? I mean, are there any other questions? Or Connie, is there anything else that you want to go over?
I just want to make sure that everyone knows, and not just the bride and the groom, but you know, the parents are involved in that a lot.
So much.
And
yeah.
they are putting, and a lot of times the parents will purchase the policy because they might be the one that's putting these deposits down. So they might be the one to say, I want to buy that policy. I want to make sure we're protected on everything that we can be. It's just, to me, insurance has always been a passion of mine, but even more so now that my kids are grown, but when they were growing up, you know, in high school and having friends over, you really have to watch and be ready to protect those assets of yours, because no matter how good of a friend, like we talked about, someone might be, if they get hurt on your property, you don't know what they might come back. Or, you know, there's attorneys out there that might say, well, yeah, go after, it doesn't matter. They've got insurance.
Well,
Let the insurance pay for it.
correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes I know I had a friend that got in a situation, and it wasn't even the person who got hurt's decision. When she filed her medical claim, and the medical insurance asked, did this happen at someone else's home? She had to check yes. The medical insurance company sued my friend to get their money back where they had paid her claims. And it wasn't even that this person wanted that to happen. They didn't have any control over it.
Exactly. No, that is
Yeah.
exactly right. Between that and auto as well, they'll ask at the hospital or wherever, was this in an automobile? If so, they want to know that.
They always ask me if it happened at your job, if it happened as a result of a car accident. Yes.
We were involved with an event about 3 weeks ago, and the guests were leaving, and the host of the party was, and it was at their home, the host of the party was saying bye to somebody. Well, the guest reached his hand out and asked him to shake his hand, and when the other person shook his hand, their dog attacked him and literally almost ripped his hand off.
Oh.
I mean, it was a bad thing. I don't know how. I mean, I don't know what insurance I would fall under.
That would be homeowners.
So.
That anytime you have an animal, that is yours, whether it be a dog, cat, horse, bird.
Yeah.
If that animal causes damage to someone else's property or hurts them any bodily injury type of way, that would come under your homeowner's policy.
It was great.
Things happen at events that you couldn't even make it up. You couldn't even sit down.
That's a
with
whole
manager
nother
that was
episode.
happening.
That's a whole nother
But I mean, it just goes to the point that you kind of need insurance. You have to be ready for anything that could happen. Well,
And I've got one question for you, Sharon. If you can tell me this, because
I'll do my best.
I've not planned a wedding in a number of years, and my son and daughter-in-law, they were good about planning their own wedding and everything. So would you say is the average cost for a wedding?
In
total?
our area, probably 40. It's going up.
Okay.
I would say anywhere between 40 and 60.
Yeah.
See, that'll help me too when I start, if someone calls and wants to
The
get
average
something
wedding
quoted.
for me, is probably 50 to 60. But in our area, I just read this the other day, and I'm trying to remember the number. I think in our area, it's like 40 to 45 is the average Kentuckiana wedding.
And that's an all-inclusive. Is that right? Caterer, everything.
Yeah,
Everything.
but different levels of,
Right.
I've done $100,000 weddings, and I've done $20,000 weddings, but
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah, it's Mike actually might. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with
Okay.
that. Yeah.
He has more experience than me, so
Well, Connie, thank you very much.
Well, thank you
I've
all
learned
so
so much.
It has been amazing. The information that you have given us
I
today
really
for our
enjoyed this.
couples. Like I said, your doors are BB.
Well, that's great. I look forward to meeting and talking to all of them.
Well, and I think the best part about this is for those locally, Connie's office being in downtown Jeff, it's right across the bridge, not even probably 5 minutes across the bridge. But you can go in and sit down face to face. You can call on the phone. You can shoot her an email. They're very flexible with how they help you with your needs regarding insurance. So, Connie, I really appreciate it. I know we
Thank
talked
you.
about this for a little bit, and I'm glad you were able to come in because I think this information is going to be very helpful, not only to engaged couples and their family members, but also wedding professionals that listen as well. So
I feel like I can speak more intelligently now when I'm asked.
provide a little bit better guidance for them to pick up the phone
And
or
then I'm
email.
going to hand them one of Connie's
Right.
Right. And also to know that it's affordable.
Yeah.
It's not
I
like
think people
very
kind of
affordable.
imagine that it's more than what you just said.
I'm so glad she brought an estimate or an
Yeah, that was really smart.
because that way it kind of gave a person something to go on. Because what are people thinking? I honestly think
I would
in my
have no
mind,
clue.
I think in my mind I thought somewhere around $1,000.
I was,
But who am I to know? Okay, so if you want Connie's contact information, it is in the show notes with a link to their website and how you can reach out to her. And make sure you find Diversified Insurance on Facebook and Instagram. And we appreciate all of our listeners, especially those that have subscribed on your favorite podcast platform. Sharon, what do we always like? If you found this information helpful and beneficial,
No, let me say.
you
A
can say,
glowing 5-star review.
oh, he got it right.
okay. Wow, that is amazing. My great job. You know, Sharon, it's unbelievable.
I mean, he's practically a rock star.
Practically a rock
Practically,
star.
yes.
Yes. And one of the biggest ways that you can help us continue to get the word out is to share this with your family, friends, other business owners, or those that you know that may be getting married. Until next time, everyone, take care.